What's going on, my fellow reef builders? I'm Jake Adams, coming back to you with a promised video of the Nano Reef tank in blue. This has actually been one of our most engaging video topics because I know that there's a lot of folks out there who have modeled kind of their beginning into reef keeping or their start into nano reef keeping based on a lot of the updates of this aquarium. And last time we featured this tank, I challenged you guys to hit it with 1,000 likes and we would showcase it in blue. So that's what we're doing. Instead of just showing you everything in blue all over again, I figured it'd be nice to really answer some of your common questions about this aquarium. But before we jump into those questions, I'll tell you about the tank. You know, about a month ago, maybe like 6 weeks, we really got into this aquarium, gave it a much needed deep clean, addressed a lot of the Phellonia, and just kind of, you know, gave it a nice little facelift as far as like some of the corals that were in here and the arrangement of the rocks, and kind of setting in motion the vision for this tank for the next couple of years. So in the meantime, you know, a little bit of Phellonia has crept up. We really haven't addressed the Aiptasia, but we haven't done anything for that. And all the corals in here are doing really excellent. I think the only really new coral is that pink candy floss Goniopora. I can see a bunch of little baby polyps kind of creeping around the sides, and I do prefer the more open aquascape a whole lot more. There's a lot more to see on all three sides of this tank. And yeah, otherwise we're gonna, you know, we'll get around to adding an emerald crab, we'll get around to adding one peppermint shrimp to naturally take care of kind of the slow progress of the Phellonia and the Aiptasia. But now let's get into answering some of your questions that were commented on the previous video. The first question is, what have you got going on in the AIO sump for this tank to keep it so low maintenance? The thing is, there's almost nothing in the back besides the included filter sock, heater that we brought ourselves, the included protein skimmer, and the return pump. Once in a while, we will put, you know, a tiny bit of GFO or carbon in the filter sock to kind of treat it like a media reactor, but it's precisely what's not in the back of the tank that makes it so low maintenance. Someone asked, is there a refugium that you can fit on that small of a tank? And you know, the reason to have a refugium is to serve a particular purpose. If the tank is balanced and clean and happy, why would you add a algae scrubber, which most people call a refugium these days? If you're talking about a real refugium, that actually happens within the rock and within the, you know, cryptic area of the bank of the tank. An astute observer said, is it just me or did you remove a good portion of the sand? And yes, we have whittled down the sand to just a very small ornamental layer because it was, you know, building up some detritus in there, and it's just, you know, sand is not my jam. I only put it in here for aesthetics, mostly for you guys. And this is actually one of those tanks that benefits from having that nice bright white bottom as a contrast. So someone asked, how are you going to take care of the Aiptasia? We are going to do it in the laziest way possible. You know, we can kind of get in there and, you know, spike them with some Joe's Juice or equivalent once in a while. But I think the best and more thorough solution is going to be adding basically probably just one peppermint shrimp. That's how we're going to take care of the Aiptasia. Someone asked, what was the little vacuum you were using to suck up the green bubble algae? It's basically just a small diameter hose, and stuck inside of it we put you know, a thin diameter rigid tubing, and that was cut at an angle both for piercing and a little bit for scraping, but we use that for siphoning detritus, you know, at an angle and getting in nice contact with the glass. Someone asked, what ATO system are you using? This is just a small new all-in-one from Auto Aqua. They make like all kinds of different ATO devices, and the reservoir that we started 2 months ago now is only half empty. So we're doing pretty good as far as our predictions for how long that was going to take. Another fun comment is someone asked if we have any Euphyllia baliensis in your tanks, and the answer is no. If those of you who are not familiar, that is the newest species of Euphyllia that was described I want to say around 2013-ish, 2012, and it's a very, very thin branching, basically a micro hammer, really almost like a nano hammer. I've never even seen it, but I've seen enough pictures, like no one has this in their tanks. I've seen enough pictures that to know that, you know, 7, 8, 10 polyps of Euphyllia baliensis is about the size of like half of one regular Euphyllia parancora branching hammer. So I don't have any, it's not in culture, but keep an eye out. What chemicals do you add to your reef tank? And similarly, someone asked, how's your parameters, especially alk and nutrients? And my first thought was to go ahead and test the water before this video so I could give you those answers, but the real answer is that we don't test the water on this tank, right? We've tested it a couple times. Alkalinity is usually kind of low, like 5.5 to 6. 6 would be good for a tank that never gets dosed. I think calcium is pretty average, on a little bit lower side, usually like 390 to 400 parts per million. Magnesium tends to run a little bit higher because we have some magnesium in our tap water, and so because it gets topped off, the magnesium tends to naturally run around 1500. Other than that, you know, we're not really dosing anything other than the top off water. Nothing gets specifically dosed, and I know that's kind of an odd non-answer for the people asking those questions, but it's the truth regarding this aquarium. There is no real deliberate dosing yet, and there's definitely very little chemistry monitoring. I think it's a good time to mention that on the Reef Therapy podcast, Mark and I talked about how when I worked in the retail setting, no one ever came in with a problem because they hadn't done enough. They only got in trouble because they were doing too much. And I think that the episode, which we'll link down below, was discussing the harms of overdoing your reef tank. And one of the things we mentioned is how in this tank, I basically underdo everything. That's the feeding of the fish, that's the water changes, our hands in the tank, the lighting schedule, the lighting intensity, everything is just aiming really, really low. And I think that's kind of the cornerstone of keeping this tank just really easy. For sure, we could have grown this out, you know, with a lot more effort in like 6 months, and we're just very happy to just let it coast very casually over more than 2 years that it's been now. And someone asked, what corals are in this tank? Can you list them? Well, we've got some orange frog spawn, gold Australian torch, a couple strains of cloak polyps, a really nice greenmouth orange Acanthasteria echinata, a few different varieties of Palithoa sun polyps. We've got the funny pink tentacled canifloss flower pot coral. There is one random orange shroom that popped off some rocks over there, and I threw it in here to see what happened. And there's a flower anemone kind of hidden in the back corner. That is everything that's in this tank. I don't know if I mentioned the GSP. Oh yeah, the Prism Favia, the 2 clownfish. That's going to be about everything. And last but not least, this is an important question that I wanted to present to you guys because sometimes there isn't a good answer. And the question is, I need your advice or suggestion on growing GSP, green star polyps. In the past 1 year, I've got several frags and a huge frag on rock, but after a couple months, they stopped to open up. What could I be doing wrong? All corals, including SPS, are growing well. I will tell you right now that I don't know what is specifically wrong. I can tell you that probably everyone has experienced a kind of boom and bust cycle regarding the green star polyps. So sometimes I put green star polyps in some of the other systems and it starts growing like crazy over the bottom, and it's not doing all, you know, it's too happy. And other times I'll put a frag in a system and it stays opened up for a little while and then slowly starts closing up, and then just kind of slowly fades away. I don't have a great answer for you. If you're not dosing any iodine, that, you know, could be the difference between having your green star polyp, your GSP, being alive and thriving. But it really does illustrate that there are a lot of unknowns when it comes to reef aquariums, when it comes to corals, and we don't always have a really good answer for you. And that applies to fish diseases, that applies to weird chemistry swings, that applies to, you know, having a tank full of healthy coral and one isn't doing well. I think the important take-home message there is to realize that you're not always going to have an answer, and sometimes there's nothing to be done. If 99 out of 100 corals are doing really great, that's what you need to focus on. And don't start you know, rejiggering the tank or testing chemistry or trying to make a bunch of changes because one coral is not thriving when all the others are. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this kind of blue light special feature of our one-day nano tank reef build, which is going on about a couple years now. The more we share it with you, the more special this tank becomes for us as well. So we're really glad that so many of you guys are enjoying it. I want to thank everyone who's just supported what we do, subscribed to the channel, and commented on our videos, and just made it a really engaging community around all the videos that we produce. And we're just really honored to have, you know, got the attention of 100,000 reef aquarists for our YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us on this promised blue light update of the tank. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, put them down below. That's where we harvest them for future videos, and we'll catch you guys on another one very soon.